My name is Audrey Walsh. I'm 36 years old, and last Christmas, my father slapped my daughter across the face in front of the entire family. He didn't just cross a line that night, he showed me it had never existed for them to begin with. That slap shattered more than silence. It shattered legacy, illusion, and every ounce of restraint I'd been holding back for 20 years. This is the story of how they tried to erase me, and how I erased the image of the perfect Walsh family instead. If you've ever been treated like the outsider in your own family, if you've ever had to walk away from people who called it love while tearing you apart, then this story is for you. Hit like, subscribe, and drop a emoji if you've ever had to fight for your place, because by the end of this, you'll know exactly what it looks like when silence fights back. To anyone who looked from the outside, the Walshes were the picture of small-town perfection. We had money, my dad, Gregory, ran one of the most successful real estate businesses in all of Fremont, Montana. We had influence. My mother, Eleanor, was on the town council and baked for every charity auction. We had legacy. My grandfather, Walter, was a decorated Korean War veteran who still sat at the head of the table like a monarch in his final reign. And we had Derek, my younger brother, the golden child. If you walked into our house, you'd see the family portraits. Derek, holding a basketball trophy. Derek, in his ROTC uniform. Derek, shaking hands with the mayor. Me, I was the one taking the photos. Childhood lessons in silence. I learned early that love in my family was conditional. Affection only came when I was quiet, obedient, and invisible. One Thanksgiving, when I was 11, I asked to say grace. My dad chuckled and said, "Let's not ruin the food with feminist speeches." Everyone laughed, even my mom. I laughed too, because what else could I do? Emotional starvation, dressed as discipline. My mother was the queen of quiet compliance. She never raised her voice, but never once defended me, either. When I cried about Dad favoring Derek, she said, "He's harder on you because he sees potential." But potential never came with praise. Just expectations, criticism, and cold distance. The wrong kind of success. I graduated top of my class, got into UC Berkeley on a full ride, and became an architect before I was 30. When I showed my parents photos of the hospital I helped design, my dad said, "So you draw buildings for a living, that's nice." Meanwhile, Derek failed upward into the family business, handed properties like party favors. He drove a Tesla gifted by Grandpa. I was still paying off my own student loans. Unmarried and uninvited. Then came the ultimate stain on the Walsh legacy. I got pregnant at 27. Out of wedlock, I chose to raise Lily alone. When I told my parents, my mother said, "Audrey, we already have one disappointment in this family. Don't make it two." They didn't show up at the hospital, didn't send a card, didn't even ask Lily's name. I didn't go back after that, not for birthdays, not for holidays, not even when Grandpa Walter fell ill. The invitation that changed everything. 6 years passed. Then, out of nowhere, a letter arrived. "Gregory's been having heart issues. If you want Lily to know her grandparents, now's the time. Eleanor." I read it 5 times. I showed it to Tara, my best friend, an attorney who's helped women escape abusive families. She said, "Are you sure this isn't bait? Because if you go back, you better be ready to burn it down if they hurt her." And that's when Paul stepped in. Paul, the filmmaker, Cousin Paul, is my cousin once removed and the family's black sheep in his own way. He left Fremont at 18, became a documentarian, and hadn't been to a Walsh dinner in a decade. When I told him I was considering going back with Lily, he nodded slowly. "You go as you. I'll go as a fly on the wall." "What does that mean?" I asked. "It means we wire you up. I capture everything. If they act like saints, great. If they don't, well, You'll have proof. The return, December 22nd. I loaded Lily into my Prius and drove 11 hours back to Fremont. She was so excited. "Do you think they'll like me?" she asked. And all I could think was, do I let her walk into the house that taught me to stay small? When we pulled up, the house looked exactly the same. Big, white, immaculate. The kind of place where secrets hide in silence, and the drapes are always closed tight. My father opened the door. His first words, "Well, look what the cat dragged in." A family of mirrors inside. Nothing had changed. Derek was still smug, still successful, still uninterested in anyone's life but his own. Mom gave me a hug, but the kind where only her shoulders move. Grandpa Walter sat in his wheelchair, frail but alert. He looked at Lily and smiled. "You've got your mother's eyes. That's a good thing." It was the first kind word I'd heard in that house in decades. And for one split second, I believed maybe, just maybe, this time would be different. It wasn't. The first night passed like a well-rehearsed performance. My mother served her signature rosemary lamb. Derek made predictable jabs at California liberals. And my father asked Lily what she wanted to be when she grew up before cutting her off with, hopefully not an architect. I smiled through gritted teeth. Lily was polite, curious, and a little nervous. But her eyes kept darting to mine for approval, as if silently asking, "Is this what family is supposed to feel like?" I wanted to tell her yes. I really did. But even after all these years, I felt that old, invisible leash around my throat. Be agreeable, don't challenge, don't let them win. The second day started with breakfast tension. My father complained the eggs were overdone. My mother apologized. No one asked how Lily slept. Derek, as always, dominated every conversation. His newest rental property in Bozeman, his fantasy football league standings, the problems with kids these days. I watched as Lily folded her napkin meticulously, not touching her food. Something in her had already started dimming, and that terrified me more than anything. Later that morning, I took Lily sledding down the back hill, just like I used to as a kid before things got too sharp at home. For a while, I forgot where we were. We laughed. We raced. She fell, got snow in her boots, and said, "Best day ever, Mom." And for one selfish moment, I believed maybe I had been too harsh on my family. Maybe people could change. Maybe forgiveness was possible. I should have known better. By afternoon, things began to unravel. It started with a conversation over tea. My mother, in that too sweet tone she used when about to draw blood, said, "You know, Audrey, it's not too late for you to settle down. Lily would benefit from a male figure." I swallowed hard. Lily has stability. She has me. Derek laughed. "Right, that's working out so well." "Huh." Then he looked at Lily and said, "You ever wonder why your dad didn't stick around?" My body stiffened. "Don't talk to her like that." My voice was low, firm. My father looked up from his crossword. "We're just being honest. She'll have to learn sooner or later. She's 8. I snapped. "Then she's old enough to know the truth," he replied, eyes cold as slate. That night was the Christmas Eve dinner. Lily had spent all afternoon practicing Let It Go on the piano, hopeful to share it with the family. She was so proud, so excited, when she stood to perform. I saw my younger self in her, nervous, desperate to be liked. She had barely gotten past the first verse before my father raised a hand. "Okay, that's enough. This isn't a school recital." Lily froze. Her fingers stumbled. She looked at me, blinking back confusion. "It's okay, sweetie." I started, but Derek cut in. "Honestly, it was kind of off-key. Sorry." "Kid." Laughter thin. Cruel rippled across the table. My mother sipped her wine. My jaw clenched so tight I thought it might crack. Lily sat down without a word. That night, she didn't want to sleep in the guest room anymore. She climbed into bed with me and whispered, "They don't like me. Do they?" I held her tighter than I'd held anything in my life. "They don't know you," I whispered back. "That's their loss." But the crack had started. The sparkle in her voice was gone. Christmas Day began with Derek mocking my almond milk. "You're still on that vegan nonsense." My father joined in. "No wonder you look so tired." I tried to brush it off, tried to focus on Lily opening presents, none of which were personal. A set of books she already owned, socks 3 sizes too big, a sweater that still had the store tag. I had sent a wish list. No one read it. I thanked them anyway. And then, during brunch, it happened. Lily, nervous and eager to contribute, accidentally spilled a full glass of cranberry juice on the tablecloth. Red soaked into white, like blood blooming in snow. There was a sharp silence, the kind that slices before sound even arrives. My father stood slowly. "What is wrong with you?" he barked. Lily froze. Her face went pale. "It was an accident," I said quickly, standing between them. She didn't mean to, but he moved past me. And then he raised his hand and slapped her. The sound was sharp, not loud, just final. Lily stumbled back. Her hand flew to her cheek, not in pain, but in confusion. It was the same look I must have had 20 years ago. That moment burned itself into my mind. Time slowed. My breath stopped, and something inside me snapped clean in half. I stepped forward, not crying, not yelling, just cold steel. "Don't you ever touch my child again." My father looked at me like I was being dramatic. "She needs discipline. She needs protection," I hissed. "And since no one else in this house knows what that looks like, I'll do it myself." Derek rolled his eyes. "Jesus, Audrey, it was just a slap. Just..." My voice shook, but not from fear, from fury. "Do you even hear yourselves? You slapped a child, and the first response isn't apology. It's justification." I turned to my mother. "Say something." She stared at the stain on the tablecloth. "Gregory didn't mean it. He just..." "Stop," I said. "Don't you dare excuse this. Not again. Not for him. Not this time." Paul, who had been quietly observing from the corner with his documentary setup, stood up slowly. "I've got it," he said. "The whole thing. Every word." Silence. Derek's face drained of color. My mother's hand trembled. My father sneered. "You've always been dramatic. What are you going to do? Post it online?" I took a deep breath. "No. I'm going to burn down the myth of this family. And I'll do it with the truth." Then I took Lily's hand, lifted her coat from the back of the chair, and walked out past the tree, past the fake smiles, past the history that had been poisoning us for decades. Outside, snow was falling gently. Lily's hand squeezed mine. She didn't cry. She didn't speak. She just walked beside me, quiet and brave. And as we got into the car, her voice broke the silence. "Mumya, I don't think I want to be part of this family." And I turned to her and said, "Then we build a better one, just us." But I didn't sleep that night, because I knew this wasn't over, not yet. The day after Christmas, I didn't answer calls. I didn't check emails. I didn't even unwrap the suitcase I'd left outside the door. Lily was asleep on the hotel bed, her cheeks still slightly red, a reminder of what silence costs when it's passed down. I sat at the window, staring into the gray Montana sky, replaying every second of that slap, and the way they all just watched, like it was normal, like it was deserved, like she was me. I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd walked right back into the same trap I'd once escaped, only this time I'd dragged my daughter in with me. And that guilt, it was acid in my veins.
Tara called. I didn't answer at first, but she didn't give up. On the third ring, I picked up. "Are you okay?" she asked. "No," I said, "and that's why I'm ready." She didn't ask what I meant. She just said, "I'm in."
We met at a coffee shop on the outskirts of town. Paul joined us. He looked tired, but there was a fire in his eyes I hadn't seen before. "I backed everything up," he said, sliding a hard drive across the table. "Video, audio, time-stamped. Your dad can't wiggle out of this one." I nodded, but my mind was racing ahead. I don't just want the world to see what they did. I want them to understand who they are. I want to dismantle this illusion of legacy they worship like gospel. Tara leaned forward. Then we hit them where it hurts reputation, power, and inheritance. We made a list, a real one, on paper, with circles, arrows, and red ink. My father's real estate empire wasn't just properties and leases, it was tied to city council favors, handshake deals, and shady nepotism. My mother, her spotless image as Fremont's perfect hostess, wouldn't survive a scandal involving child abuse, especially not when linked to a public figure like Gregory. Derek, he had skeletons, and Paul knew where some of them were buried. But this wasn't just about them. It was about me reclaiming my name and Lily's future. I didn't want her to grow up questioning her worth the way I had. I didn't want her to think love came with conditions, or that family meant endurance instead of safety. If that meant becoming the villain in their story, so be it. I'd rather be hated for protecting her than applauded for staying silent. The first move was legal. Tara filed an official report with the Montana Department of Child and Family Services, attaching the audio and video. Then, she reached out to a journalist, Jenna Rainey, who specialized in family corruption and institutional abuse. Jenna was skeptical at first. She'd seen plenty of stories where victims wanted revenge more than justice. But when she saw the footage of Lily's face, the casual slap, the cold laughter, her voice dropped. "This is going to ruin them." "No," I corrected. "It's going to expose them." Next came the will. Grandpa Walter, before he passed, had sent me something strange, a plain manila envelope with my name on it. No return address. I hadn't opened it until now. Inside was a letter, handwritten in shaky script. "You were always the strongest, even when we made you feel weakest. If this ends up in your hands, it means I've finally stopped pretending." Inside the safe behind the fireplace are 2 documents, the real will, and a statement. "Use them. Build something better." It felt like a crack in the wall I'd been pounding on since I was a kid. Paul and I returned to the house late at night. He picked the lock like it was nothing. "Still got it," he muttered. Inside, the house was still and suffocating, the kind of silence that screams. We found the safe behind the fake log panel. Paul filmed everything. I entered Grandpa's old code, his badge number from Korea. It opened on the first try. Inside were 2 yellowed folders. One was the original will. Walter had left his entire estate to my first granddaughter, Audrey Walsh, and her child, should she exist at the time of my passing. The second was a signed affidavit accusing Gregory and Derek of coercion, manipulation, and mismanagement of Walter's estate, including illegally accessing accounts while Walter was under palliative care. The official version of the will filed with the town hall listed Derek as sole heir. My father had rewritten it, lied, forged Walter's signature. Most likely, Tara would later confirm that the digital version's notary stamp was falsified, but in that moment, I wasn't surprised, just tired. "Let's give them a chance to explain," I said to Paul. "Let's see how deep this goes." He raised an eyebrow. "You're going to talk to them." "Not talk," I said. "Record." I scheduled a lunch with Derek at a downtown bar he liked, public, neutral, and just noisy enough that he'd let his guard down.
I wore a wire. He came alone, smug as ever. So, what's this about? You want to apologize for your little meltdown? I laughed. No. Actually, I wanted to ask you something. How much did Dad promise you to rewrite the will? His smile faltered for a split second. Then he scoffed.
What are you talking about? I've got the real will, I said, sipping my coffee. And Grandpa's letter. That did it. He leaned forward. You don't know what you're messing with. Audrey, you've always been emotional, unstable. You're going to blow up everything over some old man's mistake. No, I said softly. I'm going to fix it. When he stood to leave, his chair scraped violently. You better be careful. You don't know what Dad's capable of. But I did. I always had. Later that night, I drove back to the motel and found Lily asleep, hugging her stuffed fox. I sat beside her for a long time, thinking of all the nights I cried alone as a child, wondering why love felt like landmines. She didn't deserve any of this. Neither did I. And if the Walsh name was going to mean anything from now on, it would start with truth. Paul was already uploading the final cut of the video to a secured folder. Jenna was drafting the article. Tara had filed the petition to freeze the estate. It was all in motion. No more threats. No more begging for decency. I wasn't just walking away this time. I was coming back with receipts. But before the world saw the truth, there was one more person I had to confront. Not Gregory, not Derek. My mother. And that's when the story took a turn even I didn't see coming. I didn't knock. I just walked in. My mother was at the dining table, polishing silver, like she always did when the house felt unstable. Her movements were calm, but her knuckles were white. The silence between us was thick, not awkward familiar. We'd always communicated more in what we didn't say, but I was done with that now. She looked up, not surprised. You shouldn't be here. I ignored it. There's something I need to ask you. She sighed. If it's about Gregory and Derek, I can't help you. I stepped closer. No, this is about you. She looked away, still avoiding eye contact, like the shine on that spoon was more important than the fracture running down our family. I pulled the manila envelope from my coat and laid the documents on the table, Grandpa Walter's original will, the signed affidavit, the letter he wrote me. For a moment, her hands stopped. She didn't read it. She didn't need to. So it's true, I said. You knew. She nodded. Barely. He showed me the letter, said it was written in confusion, that your grandfather was delirious. Gregory said he'd handle it. Handle it, I repeated, my voice sharp. You mean bury it, like everything else? She finally looked up, and there was a flash of something shame, or maybe just fatigue. You think I didn't try, she said. I told him not to touch the money. I told him to keep you in the will. But your father, you don't argue with him. Audrey, not unless you want to pay for it every day. My stomach turned. So you chose silence, I chose survival, she snapped. Don't you dare sit there and act like you know what I've been through. You ran away. I stayed. The words hit harder than I expected. I didn't respond. Not yet. She pushed back from the table, stood up, crossed her arms. You left me with him. With all of this. You think I wanted Derek to turn into Gregory? You think I didn't know what he was becoming? I watched my son become a mirror of his father, and I was powerless to stop it. And now you come back, guns blazing, like you're the only one who ever suffered here. I didn't know what to say. For years, I had painted my mother as weak, complicit, spineless, and maybe she had been. But in that moment, I saw something I hadn't before. Not strength, not wisdom, but a woman who had buried herself under duty and fear, and called it love. She sat back down, softer now. When you left, I thought maybe you'd be free, that you'd build something better. And then I saw that girl, your Lily, And I realized you were still carrying it. Everything we passed on to you, you were trying so hard not to pass down to her. That's why you came back, isn't it? I nodded. I wanted her to know where she came from. But now I realize that's not something worth preserving. My mother leaned forward, voice almost a whisper. You're right, it's not. Burn it down. The words shocked me, but what shocked me more was what she pulled out from the drawer beside her, a photograph. Faded, wrinkled. A little girl in a green dress, holding hands with a smiling woman I didn't recognize at first. Then it hit me. The woman was my grandmother. The girl was my mother. She ran too. My mother said, left when I was 5, said she couldn't live under the weight of this family. She wrote once, told me to run when I was old enough. I never did. She looked at me then, eyes glistening. But you did. And Lily will too. You broke the chain. There was a silence after that. Not empty, but sacred. Then, without another word, she stood, walked to the hallway, and came back with a thin envelope. It's everything I know, she said. About the forged will, the accounts, the off-the-record deals. Gregory never thought I paid attention. But I always listened. I took it, why now? Because you finally made me believe there's a way out. As I turned to leave, she said one last thing. Don't let him talk you down. Don't let him twist it like he always does. You know the truth now. And I did. The next morning, I met Jenna at a small radio studio in Missoula. She had reviewed the footage, the will, the documents from my mother. This story's bigger than we thought. She said, it's not just a family dispute. It's legacy theft, financial fraud, and emotional abuse spanning decades. That's the Walsh brand, I said. Looks great from the outside, hollow as hell inside. We recorded a long-form podcast episode, raw, detailed, names included. Jenna promised to release it in tandem with her article and Paul's documentary clip. We scheduled the release for 8 p.m. Sunday. That gave us time to prepare. Tara filed a motion for emergency injunction to freeze Gregory's business accounts. Paul added final captions to the footage. I sent the link to the podcast and video to 3 local parenting forums and 2 national advocacy groups. Jenna reached out to media syndicates. It wasn't about going viral. It was about becoming undeniable. I didn't tell Lily much, just that we were going home soon. To our real home. She asked if Grandpa would be mad. I smiled. He'll be quiet. That's what ghosts do when they lose power. On the night of the release, I didn't check numbers. I didn't read comments. I sat with Lily on the couch, watching Paddington, holding her hand, heart pounding in my chest, but not from fear. At 8:04 p.m., Tara called. Gregory's lawyer just filed a counterstatement. They're rattled. You got them. I didn't celebrate. Not yet. Because the next morning, someone rang our doorbell. And when I opened the door, Gregory Walsh was standing there. He looked smaller than I remembered. Still tall, still broad-shouldered, but diminished somehow. Not physically, existentially. Like the scaffolding that held up his image had started to rot from the inside. And he knew it. Gregory Walsh stood at my doorstep in a gray overcoat, holding nothing but a leather glove in one hand and a heavy silence in the other. Can we talk? He said. His voice lower than I expected. That depends, I replied. You here to threaten me, gaslight me, or play the grieving father? He didn't flinch. I came to explain. I let him in. Lily was at school. Thank God. I led him to the kitchen and poured myself coffee. I didn't offer him any. He sat at the table like it still belonged to him, like he hadn't lost control of the narrative. I stood. I wasn't going to match his posture. Not this time. You've made quite the mess, he said finally, like we were discussing a spilled drink. No. Dad, I answered. I just lit a match. The mess was already there. He nodded slowly. Your grandfather never wanted this family destroyed. He didn't destroy it. I said, You did. There was a long pause. I could feel him choosing his next words like chess pieces. Then he looked up, those slate gray eyes sharp again. I'm not going to jail over this. You know that. Not yet, I replied. But the court of public opinion, it's already closed, and you lost. He exhaled hard, annoyed but not surprised. You've always had a flair for drama. You slapped my daughter, I said, and my voice cracked for the first time. You hit her, in front of everyone, and you didn't even blink. Do you realize what that moment did to me? He shifted uncomfortably. It was instinct, the way I was raised. Don't. I cut him off. Don't you dare play the I was raised that way card. You had choices, and you chose to repeat, chose to protect your power, your name, your pride, over everything else. He looked away. For once, the armor cracked. I didn't know how to be a father to you, he said. You weren't like Derek. You questioned everything. You pushed back. I didn't know what to do with that. You could have tried love, I said. Could have tried respect. He stood then, like he couldn't bear to sit with it anymore. It's too late to fix it. You're right, I said. It is. But it's not too late for you to feel the weight of it. I handed him a printed copy of the injunction. Tara filed this yesterday. Your accounts are frozen. We have sworn testimony from Eleanor. Multiple witnesses. You're being investigated for will fraud, emotional abuse, and neglect. He scanned it, jaw twitching. You'll drag the family through the mud for this, no? I said calmly. You already did that. I'm just turning on the light. He didn't speak after that, just walked to the door, paused, and said one last thing. You were always difficult. I smiled. And you were always afraid of women who didn't need your permission. He left without slamming the door. That was new. Maybe the first honest thing he'd done in decades. In the days that followed, the dominoes fell fast. Jenna's article hit national syndication, picked up by major outlets under the headline, Slapped into Silence, a Family Legacy Unraveled by the One They Tried to Erase. Paul's documentary trended in parenting and trauma forums, drawing attention from advocacy groups and nonprofits. The town of Fremont split down the middle. Some rallied behind Gregory, clinging to the myth of his perfection. Others began to whisper what they'd buried for years. I always wondered about how he treated his wife. He was different behind closed doors. Tara took the case further than I imagined possible, with Eleanor's statement and the real will now validated by an independent forensic analyst. A judge ruled the Walsh estate invalid as it stood. Everything would be reevaluated. Derek vanished from town a week later. No farewell, no apology, just silence the kind that feels like running. Gregory, stripped of his local influence and under civil investigation, withdrew from public life. The man who used to dominate every room now avoided every grocery aisle. As for my mother, she moved into a small apartment outside Bozeman. We speak every Sunday now, not like mother and daughter. Exactly, but like two women who finally stopped lying to themselves. She's still awkward, still cautious, but there's an honesty in her now that I never thought I'd see. Maybe healing doesn't come in big cinematic waves. Maybe it comes in soft, stumbling steps. Lily is okay. Better than okay. She laughs louder now, sleeps deeper, draws pictures of our real family, which, according to her, includes me, Paul, Aunt Tara, and Grandma 2.0. We go sledding again, every week if weather allows, and this time, when she sings Let It Go, no one tells her to stop. She finishes every note, even the off-key ones, like victory. Last week, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Inside was a check, blank, unsigned, drawn from a private trust, and a single note. Do what he never could. Build something honest. I burned the check. But I kept the note, not as a memory, as a warning. Because in the end, this story isn't about vengeance. It's about rupture. It's about looking at a legacy drenched in silence, shame, and control, and choosing to be the one who says no more. It's about breaking the cycle so that the next girl, the next Lily, grows up knowing her voice isn't a threat, it's a birthright. And as for me, I'm finally free.